Hello, class. As promised, I want to make one final, just a real brief video giving you a couple of pointers for SA3. Remember, SA3 is due Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. Uh, no one will be on campus on Wednesday except for new student orientation. So I may be a little hard to get in contact with if you need to ask me last minute questions. So think about sending me an email within the next day or two because Wednesday I will be helping with orientation. The other announcement I'd like to give is if you have not completed the end of course test already, please do so. You will need to attempt this test from a computer with a webcam. Uh, if you cannot find a computer with a webcam and you cannot borrow one from someone, you can take this quiz on campus at one of the schools. I really would prefer that people don't do that. It's the easiest test you've ever taken in your life. So far, I don't think anyone has made below a 100. I apologize for the short notice on that. The issue was that I was apparently required by law to issue a proctored assignment, and I just missed the email which was explaining that to me. So I had to backtrack and create an assignment to proctor. And that's why I made it so easy, because even though it's a hassle for you, it'll end up being a free 100. So please do it. And if you have any trouble with that, shoot me an email. Okay, so as of right now, as of filming this video, I have 5 out of 32 essays left. Okay, so I've graded the vast majority of the essays. You can see those with comments unless you're one of the 5 which is remaining, and I'm going to get to you by the time I leave today. So by around 5 o'clock, everyone should know where they stand. I have not entered the extra credit yet. I'm waiting until all of the daily grades are done. If you did the extra credit, your 2 lowest daily grades will be replaced with a 100. So your grade could change, but your standing in the class once SA2 is entered will be pretty close, right? It's pretty close to where you are. Okay, so these are the tips for SA3 that are based on SA2. So it's some feedback based on what I saw on SA2 and also some pointers for SA3. Number 1, make sure that the thesis puts forth an argumentative claim about the text. Remember, even though you're writing about something you have read, your goal is not to summarize what you have read. Your goal instead is to put forth an argument about what the text is doing on a very specific and detailed level. So you need to make sure you have an argumentative claim in place for your thesis statement. Now remember, an argumentative claim is like an assertion which needs proof. And it's different than an observation, which is just a statement of fact that no one can disagree with. And a lot of you guys had kind of statements of fact or observation for your thesis statement on SA2. So please make sure that SA3 puts forth an argumentative claim about what the text is doing and why it matters. Number 2, make sure that the topic sentences also put forth smaller and more focused claims about the text. Okay, so if you're looking at how Martin Luther King uses ethos, pathos, and logos to convince the viewership to end segregation, the readership, then you have one topic sentence focusing on the ethos, one focusing on the pathos, and one focusing on the logos, but you're putting forth claims. He uses ethos to achieve this effect, and therefore, so what, right? So you put forth those claims, then you reinforce the claims with, then you reinforce the claims with textual specifics, quotes from the text. So use textual specifics and include direct quotes. This is number 3. A lot of you guys didn't include direct quotes. Some of you didn't even include the parenthetical citations, which just kind of blew my mind. We really need to have the MLA stuff down by the second essay, and a lot of people didn't. So use textual specifics, be targeted and direct, use direct quotations. Don't try to paraphrase, because a lot of times you paraphrase, you take away the validity of some of what was said. Okay, and this brings me to number 4, include the parenthetical citations. So I'm going to go over what parenthetical citations are, but I would say the vast majority of people did not include them for SA2, which is, I think that might be a first for me. And I realize this is an online class. You know, these lectures are kind of slapdash. I realize that. But we have gone over those citations, and it's very important that you get them correct. In most cases, it would just be a parentheses after the quote containing the author's last name and the page number. If there's not a page number, of course, there's something that you do in that case. If there's not an author's name, there's something you do in that case. But generally speaking, it's going to be author's last name and page number. With this final essay, you pretty much have authors' names for each text, so that should be what you include. Avoid using the first person I, me, my. Don't make any references to yourself. I got a lot of I think, I feel, in my opinion. It's not about you and your opinion. It's about what you can prove using evidence. So try not to put the I in there because it kind of ruins the objectivity a little bit. It makes you put too much of your own personal view into it. Number 6 is word variance. Please make sure that you use varying words. If you say the same word 1,000 times in the same essay, it really does detract from the way the essay sounds. A lot of times going through and reading the essay out loud will help you catch some of this stuff, because when we're writing, we don't necessarily hear it. We kind of just write and let the words spill out of our heads. But it's in the editing phase that we can go back and notice, hey, you know, I've used this word 12 times in the same paragraph. That's a little bit tedious. Let me go in and trim that down a little bit, find some synonyms, right? So please be aware of that. Number 7 is always have a lead-in statement for quotes or no alien landing. When you start a quote, you don't just want to start the sentence by opening the quote. You want to give me some kind of indication of where the quote came from. So, for example, according to one scholar, quote, right, that according to one scholar is a lead-in statement, right, and it prevents an alien landing. I mean, it prevents the quote from just dropping out of the sky. I mean, being like, where does this come from? So always have a lead-in statement for quotes. Make sure that you give me some indication of where it came from so that I'm not just blindsided by the information. Number 8. Always include personal analysis after quotes. Don't let the quote speak for itself. Explain it to me in your own words. And the example I always use is explain the bloody knife. So if you come into a classroom and you see a bloody knife on the table, what does it mean, right? Well, you don't necessarily know. I mean, it's a pretty good indication that you should probably leave, but you don't really know what happened. Maybe somebody was butchering an animal for dinner. Maybe it's a prop from the drama club. Maybe somebody got stabbed. You don't really necessarily know unless someone explains to you, oh, hey, that's a prop from the drama club, or oh, hey, I was whittling and I cut myself, sorry, right? So always include personal analysis that explains the evidence. In other words, explain the bloody knife to people. Don't just let the bloody knife speak for itself, because people may end up drawing the wrong conclusion, right? Hopefully that makes sense. That example is a little bit disturbing. I realize that. Number 9, use transition words to improve flow. Got a lot of just kind of like statements, individual sentences strung together. We call that a paragraph. Remember that a paragraph is supposed to flow. It's supposed to have cohesion. Transition words like, for example, or in another sense, or something like that. Transition words and transition phrases. In addition, also, right, these are the kinds of words that we use to kind of like string together sentences and make it to where the flow is a little bit better, right? It's not just a bunch of independent sentences kind of stacked on top of each other. Number 10 is avoid cliches, colloquialisms, and figurative speech. And boy, did I have a lot of cliches and colloquialisms. Remember, you're trying to write as formally as possible, which means that a lot of the phrases and terminology that you use in everyday speech is really not appropriate. If the governor to the state walked in the room, you wouldn't go, "What's up, bro? How you doing?" Right? Because that would be informal. So you want to try to be as formal as possible. Cliches like "that's the way the cookie crumbles," you can lead a horse to water, those kinds of things. Colloquialisms are just like kind of just when you say, "Oh, the little kid," kid is kind of colloquial. This is really cool. That's a colloquial expression. Figurative speech is like his love was like an effulgent burning fire that could not be extinguished, right? We're not trying to be really figurative with our comparisons. Just be plain, direct, and formal with your speech, okay? Number 11, include a works cited page. There were 2 required sources for this essay. Some people didn't include any sources at all. Some people included sources that didn't pass the CRAP test, and a lot of the people that did include sources either didn't include parenthetical citations or did not include a works cited page. You must have a works cited page. If you're wondering, you're like, man, I really worked hard on my essay. A lot of points were taken off for formatting this last go around. So you got to make sure you have that works cited page, and especially for essay 3, since I've pretty much given it to you on the assignment prompt itself. I've given you the citation. There's no excuse not to have it. So please include a works cited page. You will get, it is a 5-point deduction for not having a works cited page. Number 12, alphabetize and indent after the first line of each citation on the works cited page. So make sure that your sources are in alphabetical order, and after the first line of each source, you're going to press tab, and you're going to indent the second and third and fourth. If there's a fourth line, you're going to indent that too, right? So I will go over again. I'm not going to go read the essay to you, the Poultry for POTUS essay, but I will show you the works cited page so that we understand exactly what I'm talking about. The thesis and topic sentences should not be phrased as questions. They should also not include quotes of any kind. Quotes are for the evidence portion of the body paragraphs. They are not to be presented in the thesis and topic sentence. It should not be a statement of fact. It should not be a question. So make sure your thesis and your topic sentences, as I said earlier, put forth argumentative claims. Number 14, please don't say in conclusion. I know that you've been told to say in conclusion, but it's so tedious if every essay I read, in conclusion, in conclusion, in conclusion. You don't need to announce the conclusion, because if it's a good conclusion, it will have the tone of closure, and I'll be able to tell that you're wrapping up. You don't need to announce it, okay? Number 15, remember to write in complete sentences. And the reason I put this on there is that sometimes we don't always speak to each other verbally in complete sentences. And it's kind of hard for me to explain. The best way I can think of is like if you're watching Star Trek and it goes, space, the final frontier. Well, there are technically missing words there, right? Space is the final frontier, right? This is outer space, comma, which is the final frontier, right? But just saying space, the final frontier, makes sense verbally, but in a technical sense, it's really not complete, right? It's missing words. So you want to make sure that you write in complete sentences, and don't write as though you were like narrating a commercial or something, because I feel like people get that tone sometimes. And number 16, this is a big one. No extra spaces anywhere. There's no extra spaces after the title. There's no extra spaces between paragraphs. There's no extra spaces between sources. If you're putting extra spaces in your essay, you're doing it wrong. That's why we indent the paragraphs, which should also be up there, indent paragraphs, by pressing tab. And that tells me when a new paragraph ends and another one begins. I don't need to have these like 5 or 6 spaces separating your paragraphs in between. So those are just the basic tips that I noticed just going over the essay. Now, what I do want to show you real quick, and I won't take too much more of your time because I know you're at the home stretch, you're almost done, you want to be done with it. So one thing I would say is that this is technically, this works cited page is supposed to have its own page. I'm not really sure why. So let's just pretend that this starts on the next page, okay, because it needs its own separate page. But you see it says works cited. It doesn't say sources used. It doesn't say works cited page. It just says works cited. And if it's only one work, it will say work cited, right? Okay, so then you'll notice the other thing I want to show you here is, they're in alphabetical order, but look at how, you see how after, this is the first line of the citation, okay? And then here is the indentation, right? The second and third lines of each citation are indented. And you notice because they're indented, you don't need all these extra spaces in between, because I know that this is a new source because it's not indented. So please make sure that you do that. Make sure that your works cited page is formatted correctly. I really don't want to take off a bunch of points for MLA this time. And by the way, this is how your front page should look. You need to have your last name and page number. You need to have your heading over here. You need to have a title, right? So just make sure that you're formatting it correctly. And if you're not sure, please just go and look it up. I know that MLA is really tedious, but if I send a bunch of people to 1102 and beyond, not knowing this MLA stuff, they're going to come down on me probably. So please make sure that you know the MLA stuff and that you're doing it correctly, because it's not a good look to go into 1102 and not have this stuff right. Okay, so that's really all I have to say today. I'm not going to go in too much more detail. I'm just going to kind of trust you guys to do the work. We've done pretty good, I think, for an online course, and we're here at the home stretch. So please remember, the essay is due Wednesday at 11:59. I think grades are due for me as in I have to turn them in by next Tuesday at 10 a.m. So if you have anything you need to reconcile, you need to do it before Tuesday. All right. So, the weekend and Monday, pretty much that's like the last chance I have to help anybody with any problems, outstanding issues. Maybe you sent me an email a while ago and it got buried. Now would be the time to mention it, because after Tuesday, the grades are going to be locked in the computer. You should be able to see them Wednesday morning. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you this week. I have enjoyed this semester, even though I didn't meet you all in person. I hope that it wasn't completely painful. I hope that you learned something. And if you get a chance to take my 1102 class in person, I'd love to have you. So with that being said, have an excellent week, happy writing, and good luck with your finals.